in a dark world where words bring about light, life, and hope.
Welcome to the Poetic Moment
with Tony the Poet. So, today I'm going to be talking to one person that needs no introduction. I mean, you guys know him by now, so we have Tony the Poet.
Yes, Elwin. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Tony?
I'm pretty good.
Awesome. Thank you for having me here, and I'm glad to be hosting you today.
Yeah, it's like now we have changed the whole chair there.
Well, Tony, I've seen you since I was a young boy, and many people have seen you. I mean, some know you more than I do, so tell me, when did this journey of poetry start, and how did it start?
Basically, I think performing arts started when I was quite 5 years old, very young. So I started, kindergarten, Sunday school. So that's when it started, and then from ever since, every stage of the way, get involved in theater, poetry, and all that stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if there's something that you would tell somebody that feels like, yo, I've been in this so long and I'm done learning, I don't think I need to learn anything, what would you tell that man?
I think what I would say to anyone who want to venture in any kind of passion, be it music, poetry, or any kind of performing arts, I always say be relevant, relentless. Relevant, relentless. Meaning you should know your audience. I can't be in a time like this and I'm trying to be like Shakespeare. It won't work. So being relevant to your time and your geographical and your location and your target, your people that you're trying to target with the gift that you have, and being relentless, meaning you can't stop. You gotta beat that thing day in, day out. You have to develop your craft.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's a thing of continuously developing your craft and always raising the standards with the audience that you're having at that moment.
Yeah, you should always strive to be better than where you were yesterday.
So awesome, so true. So Tony, let's talk about the piece that you'll be doing today.
The first piece that I'm going to be doing now is a father figure. Now these are the two pieces I'm going to do. It's way back when I was a teenager, like 14, 18 years old, when I wrote them. And at that time, the pieces, I was reflecting upon my own life where I didn't grow up with my father. So when I wrote the father figure, I was thinking about the pain that I endured, wishing my father was around and what I suffered. Now that I have my kids, there's some piece when I was going through it, it now changes. Now when I'm gonna do this piece, what I'm thinking in my head is about my kids, and I'm thinking about what I should be to them.
Wow.
Which my father was not to me. So when I wrote the piece was about me not having a father. Now that I'm doing it, I have my children, I'm doing it thinking what I could be to my children, what my father was not to me.
Awesome. So if you're watching this show, I mean, you might be a father, or you might be one that didn't grow up with your father. So stay tuned and learn how a father should be, especially in this time and day.
Tony the Poet, father figure. Pardon me, I overslept, waiting to hear the ring bells of a father figure. So I wandered wandering in the wilderness of broken norms and culture. Growing up as a teenager poet boy, to whom society will look up to someday, without and in the absence of a father figure. So then, I was taken, nurtured, groomed, guarded, provided, and it sheltered me in its wings of decayed morals. The duty of a father, society. The most interesting part, they gave me rights and freedom to exercise my manhood ability. That being a man is to have multiple references of multiple sexual partners, developing baby producers in the absence of the father, surely. How could you be a father? Fathering those without fathers, without referring to the ultimate source, Yahweh, God, the definer, source of every father figure. You are lost, little man, because real men and real fathers, They provide, protect, shelters, discipline, and they guide their family. He is a priest and the head of the house, spiritually and physically. Figure it out. Are you one of them? Father figure.
So welcome back to Poetic Moment with Tony the Poet. I'm Elwin the Churchites and I'm hosting the main man today. So Tony, tell me, you know, as fathers, sometimes we think that, well, I've left my child, I've run away. But if there's a man out there that thinks about, well, I've got to get back to my child and do the father figure thing, what would you give them today?
You see, the word father is in Greek actually it means the source. So when I do say a line in a poetry about developing baby producers in the absence of their fathers.
Yeah.
And the line was meant to say that sometimes it's not automatic that when you can produce a child, because being a father is being the source, meaning I produced you biologically, but you're going to look up to me for provision, for protection, for affirmation, for confirmation. So a father becomes like a compass for a boy or a girl. So the father begins to guide and the children begins to feel secure. So to people that you know you have produced a child, and I wouldn't want to use the word you're fathered because you might use that word meaningless or loosely. But the word is too big, because the moment we say father, it carries so much from the original meaning. It carries so much heaviness within its context. So if you know you have a child back, I think being a responsible person, you would have to go back and actually reverse that. Can I just be honest? Poetry are the most vulnerable people. I can be vulnerable. So if you ever impregnated a girl years back when you were a teenager, and then you grow up and then you still remember, you know, even if you can still go back and refix it. The challenge is for the fatherless. We are living in a fatherless society, a fatherless country. 70 to 80% of homes are being sheltered or being guided by females. Where are the fathers? And in that piece I do talk about, it's hard for a man, a young man, to be actually a full father when he was never fathered. So at this moment we're gonna rely on mentors, we rely on spiritual leaders, we rely on community leaders to begin now to set up groups of young boys who come from the single mother, begin to be just a father figure, begin to bring up these boys. I think there are some NGOs that are doing boys to men, and begin to mentor these boys. Like, how do you really become a man in terms of yourself, in terms of the people around you. So the issue we are dealing with of fatherlessness is way too deep. It's way too deep. It's way too deep, and to fix it would have to go back to the root. You can't. There's a quote, actually I love it, by somebody, I don't know who wrote it, but it says, "It's easier to mentor a boy into a good man. It's hard, almost impossible, to fix a broken man."
Very true. So Tony, let's talk about the next piece that you're going to do.
What About Us? What About Us is a piece I wrote years back when I was still a little boy, young. I think it was during the time we're about to get into independence time. So it's about celebrating people who have fought for freedom, but as well as questioning young people's involvement. Now that we are free, everybody got to be involved in the development of the country. But at the same time, we can't be involved if the leadership is not opening doors or opportunities for everybody or young people to be involved. So a poem is a very encouraging. It's about celebrating, but it's all about saying we should take accountability and responsibility for the development of of the nation and what we are.
Yeah.
So it's a three angle. You have to view it in three angles. That's how. So poems sometimes you can't view it in one angle. Everyone can actually get it from different angles.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to listen to it and actually break it down. There's so many elements that we put in poems that you need to sit down sometimes and re-listen to them over. But but it's all about the question, what about us? And the subtitle can be freedom.
What about us, freedom? Mm-hmm. So tell me, if there are young people that feel like, well, our leadership comprises only of elderly people, do you think that young people should just sit back and be like, yeah, Tony said it, what about us? So, or is there something that they need to do?
Basically, when you look at leadership, you should read a book by, is it Robin, the guy who sold the Ferrari? He wrote another book called A Leader Without a Title.
A Leader Without a Title.
Yeah, it's an amazing book. I would encourage every young person or whatever you're doing in the street to get out of that book, A Leader Without a Title. and it gives this figurative about leadership, and he talks about great heroes who never had any title, but they were the greatest leaders.
Wow.
And he gives examples. So to be a leader, you don't need to have a position. You don't need to be a leader. You don't have to be a CEO of a company, to be a minister in the government, to be a president. No. Everyone has to be a self-directed into their own leadership. Actually, there's a quote, I think the Bible, David said, if you can't be the leader of yourself, you cannot lead anyone.
Not at all.
So young people can say, no, we don't have a platform. No, you should start with your own life. Be innovative. Let actually what you do in your own personal life begin to influence other people. So you don't have to wait for a certain structured position for you actually to begin to operate. So you can, where you are, it can be in the village, in the community, you can be the leader of yourself first.
True.
And begin to create an environment where you can inspire other young people.
Awesome. So leadership starts with yourself. Stay tuned as we get a piece of What About Us.
Tony the poet. What about us? Freedom. Physically free, but most of us are still mentally incapacitated. We all cheered on the 21st of March, and we realize no chains in our arms, no shackles on our ankles. Independence. A preconceived idea of freedom. Yeah, freedom. Now, because we fight for the true cause, and the causes are the true enemies. But now, questioning the mental status and the spiritual levels, never mind. Let us all cheer and shout freedom, freedom, freedom at last. But others are asking, what about us? What about us? It's time to look back and be merry correctively, yet success and awards are individual. Only the boobs who sit idly and blame the government. You see, desensitizing, demolished, dependent mindset. Because communion with slave masters who lead us to new colonization. Failure to conceive this hidden agenda would cause a man to stumble. And others are asking, what about us? What about us? The born free. Nothing is for free. Doomed, condemned juveniles, demanding privileges for their prerequisite failures. You see, excuses are escorting many countrymen and women to their early graves. Because the sacrifice of our forefathers and the foremothers for freedom, it's like blood dropping of a virgin, giving her innocence for the man she loves, so that you and I could enjoy the fruit of his and her blood, freedom. You see, the blood was shed of our forefathers and mothers for freedom, but others are still asking, what about us? What the hell about us? We are the people and we are the government. So let us unite collectively and start rebuilding in the place you now reside in, called freedom. And stop asking and saying, what about us? What about us?
Welcome back to Poetic Moment with Tony the Poet. I'm Elwin in the Churchet and I'm busy with Tony the Poet. What about us? What about us? Tony, so tell me, what went through your mind? I know I asked you this question before, but as you are reciting the poem right now, what do you think was the reaction of the audience?
What about us? It's a piece I think I wrote years back. But I think at the end of the day, the finalizing message, I hope the audience, if they did manage to pick it up, each one has a responsibility to play on the platform called freedom. Freedom is a space where everybody can exercise who they are, and when they exercise who they are, it should be able to benefit the community. It should be able to benefit everybody around them. So it should be able to benefit the country. So I'm saying there's this space, there's this platform called freedom, and everybody is welcome. And some people fought and died for freedom. This platform called freedom. And now that we have it, I'm hoping everybody can jump on a platform and just stop asking what about us and saying, we are doing something for us and for our people. I think that's the idea.
Awesome. There's a line where you went like their blood dripping, and when something drips, it usually goes into the soil. So do you think, since the blood got us independence, do you think there are some fruits that we need to harvest from the blood that was planted in the soil?
You see, I quote of the fight for freedom. I quoted it figurative to a virgin who gives her virginity to the man she loves, and that's the first time. So these people who died, they were giving up their lives, their souls for the country and the land they love, and there are fruits to that. The challenge happens when we can't harvest the fruits. But there was a plantation, which is the fight for freedom so that we can harvest the fruit. But it's still a challenge in terms of whether people are really harvesting the fruit of this. I think we are getting there where we're going to have the equal access to the fruit of this freedom and stuff like that.
Awesome. I love the way that you're saying we are getting to the point where we're still going to harvest of the fruit.
We're going to harvest the fruit.
Awesome. So I want to talk about the fruit that's coming up. I'm going off this now. I want to go into your life. So Tony, tell me, you've got a book coming out?
I've got a book coming out, and Broken Calabash. I think in the next season of Poetic Moment, it will be available. This book is about it's about culture. It's about Africa, and I've got several chapters in it. Broken Calabash, I'm dealing with an African perspective, whereby from culture, from gender issues, not much of political, but just anything that is broken in our society. You see, calabash in the villages was used for preservation. To put milk or cold water, anything that is good was preserved within the calabash. And when the calabash is broken, that preserves anything that is good, then we don't have access to good things. And I'm breaking this whole book, 200 and something poems in it, and it's just about different parts of our society that has been broken and how we can actually bring it back. Social, psychological, political, economical, whatever it is, that we can actually work together. So I'm using poetry as a platform to communicate some social issues.
Awesome. You mentioned that a calabash is used to preserve something good. I don't know, but I'm getting to this point of, is there some way that this calabash can be repaired? Do you discuss about it in your poetry?
I think that is very, very imperative, because whenever you're presenting a piece, you don't just want to point out the problem. You want to also say, okay, this is a problem, but this is an alternative.
Yeah.
So there are moments, I think, in most of the pieces where we say, okay, let's go back to the authenticity, the originality, or the moral ground of who we were, how we were brought up as African, Ubuntu, the love that we had for each other as human beings and built each other, fought for each other.
Yeah.
So I do have most of the element in some of the pieces and poems in that book that talks about let's go back to the Ubuntu originality and what we're supposed to be. Yeah.
Wow. Awesome. Now, I love the way he says it, that we need to go back to a point where we as Africans used to unite in all that we do. You know, I've written a piece, My Neighbor's Wall, and it speaks about how we as African children will just play randomly. We didn't have this thing of, no, this is just my neighbor, and there was like a fence, so you could jump over the fence, but in today's world, we have got walls that separate neighbors, you see? So it makes it difficult. So what do you think is one way we as Africans can like break that wall of separation?
I think the challenge is that we are drifting into the culture that is not ours. We are living a borrowed culture, and that's where the challenge. Our children, our generation has borrowed this Western culture. That wasn't. You see, when you look at Western culture, it was more on nuclear family. You and yourself, whether be it your wife and your kids, but that's how the Western is. African, we were saying a village is raised by, a child is raised by the village. So you belonged to the village. That's what we were. And in order for most of the achievement in our indigenous way back in the days, we achieved this. Even to talk about freedom, I remember talk about that. There was a speech the founding father Sam Nujoma gave, and he said, when we fight for Namibia, Namibia is not ours. Namibia belongs to Africa. Namibia belongs to Zambia. He mentioned several countries, and he says, he was mentioning Ubuntu, that whatever we are fighting for is not just for us, it's for all of us.
All of us,
And Zambia is for all of us. South Africa is for all of us. Nigeria, the whole Africa is for all of us. And he mentioned that in the statement. I think that was very, very profound. So that was the culture we were in, that what is yours is ours. What is ours is yours. So I think we should go back to that, our African roots of Ubuntu, that you are because I am. I am because you are. You know, I can't exist in isolation. I exist, and my happiness is in conjunction with, harmonious with the others.
That is so true and so deep. Man, I don't know, if you are still not yet with us, you've got to join us every day. Don't miss any of these episodes on Poetic Moment with Tony.
Today there was a little bit of shift because the host got to be the one being interviewed, because I had to do this. So it's always poetic. Just go with it. It's just great. But on a serious note, in conclusion, I'll give another few 1, 2, 3 tips. As a poet, when you're developing, it's good to read the works of Shakespeare and all these other ancient great poets. But I want you to be relevant, meaning understand your geographical area, understand your issues around you. It'll be hard for me living in Africa with high unemployment rate, HIV, diseases, gender-based violence, for me to be writing poetry about coffee or the sunrise. It's going to be beautiful and creative, but I would rather write what I'm going through and also addressing the social issues around me. So being relevant is very, very important, so that your audience can relate to you. When you're in Europe, London, saying the sunrise looks good, or some kind of, or today it's raining. It's good. But when you're in Africa, where we are dealing with a lot of issues, you want to make sure that your talent can be able to help us address some of the issues. One great poet said these lines. He said, any talent, if it's not bringing solution or adding value to the society, it is going to be automatically or eventually bring harm or catastrophe to the community. So I want you to examine some of the talents and how people express themselves out there. If it's not bringing harmony, peace, laughter, joy, and all this love that we need, the opposite is true. Some talent actually brings some kind of very bad results in the community. Now you want to examine that. Until then, Poetic Moment with Tony the Poet. I was with the Churchites.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Awesome.